As I mentioned, Tim Breaux absent from this field, so really that makes the race wide open.
Yeah, this is a very, very hard race to call. And if I had to pick a favorite, I certainly will go with Daniel Lincoln. He is coming off a tremendous double, a historic double at the NCAA's last week, when he was the co-winner of the 10,000 meters and won the steeplechase outright. The big question with Daniel Lincoln is, does he have one more race in the tank? He's run 11 miles. He's raced 11 miles in the past week and a half. He's got to be tired, but he says he's more tired mentally than he is physically.
And former Tennessee Volunteer standout Anthony Famlighetti, also a major player in this championship final.
Yeah, he's had some problems with compartment syndrome, and he missed 6 months of training this winter. And he's only been training for 5 months, but he's still as confident as ever. He says, I can win this race.
Approximately 7.5 laps, 28 total barriers, 7 water jumps in the 3,000-meter steeplechase. That is Daniel Lincoln on the outside in the red, just finishing his career at the University of Arkansas. As you saw, 3 times the NCAA champion in the steeplechase, and turning that never done before double of the 10,000 meters and 3,000 steeplechase at the NCAA. He helped the Arkansas Razorbacks win their 10th outdoor national team title in Sacramento last week. And Famlighetti familiar with being in the front, Steve.
Yeah, he's not afraid to take the pace, even though this is his second race of the season. His first race, of course, being the preliminary. And he looked very good in the prelim 2 days ago. But the problem is that he's only had 5 months of training, so he may run well for one race, but will he be able to come back for the final? We'll see.
Does this pace look to be a little bit slow to you?
This is surprisingly slow. I spoke to Robert Gary, another one of the favorites. He was a 1996 Olympian, who said that if the pace is slow, I'm going to take it. I'm not afraid to run from the front. I'm comfortable with the lead. But so far, he hasn't jumped to the lead, and it's a very slow pace.
Because of the amount of miles and the amount of races that Daniel Lincoln has run this season, does this pace favor him, perhaps?
Well, he told me that he actually prefers a fast pace. He wants to keep the race honest. He believes that the top 3 will be in the 8:20 range, but they are not anywhere near 8:20 pace right now.
5 of the athletes in this final do have the A standard for the World Championship, so not much of a concern of fielding 3 entrance into that race in Paris. Anthony Famlighetti continuing to lead. It is warm down on the track, but the breezes are down today as opposed to yesterday where we had winds blowing all over the track. That has to help these athletes as well.
Yeah, it was very windy yesterday. I'm sure they were a little concerned about what the pacing would do. And then the additional factor in the steeplechase where you actually have to do some hurdling may affect your stride approaching the barriers, but that frankly is not a factor today.
So let's set the field. It's Anthony Famlighetti still leading over Daniel Lincoln, then Steve Slattery, formerly of Colorado. Jordan Desailly is 4th, and Robert Gary still not making much of a move there in 5th. You know, this event has been dominated by Kenyans, and I've watched over the years as they've just thrown a lot of great talent, distance talents in there. They didn't care much about the technique. The U.S. position and this philosophy is completely different, isn't it?
Yeah, the American steeplechasers tend to take a more technical approach to the event, so that's why you see a lot of steeplechase specialists. In Kenya, a lot of times the athletes run both flat races and steeplechases to develop their speed, but Americans tend to be technical hurdlers. That's changing now with the advent of Tim Breaux, who won the 5,000 meters last night. But certainly the guys in the front of this race, Robert Gary almost runs exclusively steeplechases.
Well, the bottom line is that the Kenyans are still dominating 7 of the top 10 in the world last year, as Robert Gary does finally go to the front and start to push the pace a bit more. Daniel Lincoln staying in 2nd place, Steve Slattery, and Famlighetti has now fallen off the pace substantially. Let's go very quickly down to the infield. Stacey Dragula, the world record holder and defending world champion as well as Olympic champion, on the runway for her first attempt at 14.3 1/4. Typical starting height for Dragula, and over easily. She's just recently relocated down to Phoenix to work with a new coach, Greg Hull, who coached Olympic champion on the men's side, Nick Hysong. And she feels that this has really helped her a lot. She's purchased a home down there, and she and her husband Brent are very happy at the move. Dragula just excellent on the runway. That plant a little bit under, meaning that her foot on the runway was below her hand or in front of her hand, but still a very nice clearance on the first attempt. She has waited a long time from the time there were warm-ups. You can see there she just brushes with her upper body, getting her height a little bit late. It's one of the adjustments she's been trying to make this whole outdoor season. By the way, she did set the world record on this track just 2 years ago. So Dragula over easily on her first attempt. As we get back to the men's steeplechase, no change in the top three. They have picked up the pace, though, substantially, while Robert Gary is still leading over Daniel Lincoln and Steve Slattery. Less than 4 laps to go.
I have to point out Steve Slattery. He graduated from Colorado last year. He ran cross country for them last season. But he says that he's in great shape. He's ready to PR, and he's hanging right on the lead. He's in very good position to make this team to compete in Paris next summer.
This trio separating themselves from the rest. Anthony Famlighetti still trying to stay in contact. He did take the race out the first few laps, but awfully slowly, so it's a surprise to see him struggling. So it's Robert Gary, followed by Daniel Lincoln, who seems completely content to just stay right where he is. And then Steve Slattery, as Famlighetti still trying to reel those guys in. When they cross the finish line, they will be 3 laps from the end of this race.
Yeah,
Let's go down again quickly to the infield, and Mel Miller, former American indoor record holder in the pole vault, her first attempt at 14.3 1/4, continuing to struggle with some run-up problems that she's had, and also promoting the vault girls calendar. Miller, a 2000 Olympian, competed in Sydney, did not make the final, however, and has problems there again. These athletes that have started at a higher height, it's been quite a while, more than 2 hours since their warm-up jumps. So maybe a little bit rusty, and there is no breeze blowing down on the infield that the vaulters like. Back to the steeplechase, and Steve Slattery has moved into second. Daniel Lincoln still third. Robert Gary leading as Lincoln now takes the lead. But let's talk a little bit about that vault girls calendar. Steve, you got a copy yet?
I don't know what you're talking about, Dwight.
As I mentioned earlier, the hottest event in track and field probably is the women's pole vault, and they do a very fine job of marketing themselves. Daniel Lincoln, who just graduated from the University of Arkansas, was a walk-on at that school, if you can believe that. Won 3 NCAA titles in this event. He's taken over the lead. Steve Slattery still hanging in second, and Robert Gary looking a little bit tough and tired in third. Anthony Famlighetti really not able to reel these 3 in.
Yeah, Lincoln looks very, very, very good. Doesn't look like the races last week affected him at all. And he's taking actually a very unconventional approach to the World Championships preparation. He's getting married next month.
I would say that would probably change his focus ever so slightly, but Daniel Lincoln appears to just have so much confidence the way he's been running lately, coming off that double at the NCAAs in Sacramento, where it was also quite warm, so he's probably a little bit more prepared for these kinds of conditions. The air awfully still down there on the track, and Lincoln has opened up a bit of a lead over Slattery, and Gary is trying hard to stay on. It does not look like Anthony Famlighetti, short of a great finishing sprint, is going to be able to crack the top 3.
It's clear that Daniel Lincoln right now is in the zone where it doesn't matter how many races you run, everything you do turns to gold, and he's just sort of in that zone right now, and he's looks very tough to beat this afternoon.
Steve, would you say showing the fitness that he did at 10,000 meters with 1 lap to go, and then also coming back and winning the steeplechase easily, has he really gotten to the next level in the steeplechase?
I believe he has. He can make an impact on the world stage. The good thing is he's finished with his collegiate eligibility, so he won't be doing as much doubling as he will. But this race actually is not over. They have closed the gap on him, and this is where we'll find out what kind of legs Daniel Lincoln has left.
Robert Gary making a move with 300 meters to go. It's now Lincoln followed by Gary, who had the lead for a couple of laps, and then Steve Slattery still hanging in there. Those will be the 3 representatives on the U.S. team. It's just now a matter with a half lap to go of who is going to finish. 1, 2, 3. Lincoln followed by Gary, and then by Slattery. I'm going to ask you to call it from here. Tell me who it's going to be.
It's a very courageous race by Robert Gary. I would say he looks in great position right now. Lincoln looks just a little flat. Ooh, and Robert Gary, a terrible stutter over the final lap. That cost him the race. And the surprise, Steve Slattery is going to win this race. Daniel Lincoln second. Robert Gary with that terrible last hurdle.
And how many times have we seen that last hurdle be the death knell for so many? Henry Marsh at the '83 World Championships 20 years ago had the lead and hit it. Steve Slattery ran a smart race, staying in second place all along. Daniel Lincoln and Robert Gary happy to be making this team. Let's take a look at that last hurdle, Steve.
So Robert Gary looked fantastic coming off the water jump, and I thought for sure he was going to shoot down the home stretch, but he really here's another look. As they approach the hurdle, he almost comes to a dead stop to come over the hurdle, and that cost him the race. Steve Slattery uses his momentum, a perfect last hurdle, and that got him past Daniel Lincoln down the home stretch. And Lincoln, perhaps showing the effects of his races last week, just did not have the legs to stay with Slattery.
So Steve Slattery, formerly of Colorado, wins it. Daniel Lincoln makes a great run for second, and Robert Gary hanging on for third in the men's 3,000 meter steeplechase.
All right, Dwight, thank you. When we return to Palo Alto, the dramatic men's 100-meter final held last night, featuring world record holder Tim Montgomery. It was a great race. You'll see it when we come back here on NBC.